Hey, I'm back. It's been a while. Gonna really try to keep this one brief. I think I tend to ramble on these things. Totally understand it. I rambled so much I even didn't even get into it this time. I'm Evan Altman. Probably know that already, but this is Inside Corner, sponsored, hosted by Cubs Insider. Hence the name. Baseball reference. You get it. Anyway, coming to you on Friday afternoon on June 21st. Supposed to be officially the first day of summer. It feels like early spring. A little bit warm out today. Initially, it's been rainy and crappy. This is like the wettest June. And, it's kind of a downer, man. The Cubs kind of dropped a crap game. So I'm just going to share a beer with you. I'm going to talk a little bit. And then I'm going to get out because I got Jessica Jones to catch up on, and I got an audiobook to listen to. So this is my special mug that my son made me. I think this is a birthday present, something like that. And I am drinking, this is from Saltfire Brewing in, where is this, in Utah, I think? Salt Lake City, Utah. This is a series of singularities. It's their single hop IPA series. This one, I believe, is Citra, right? It says it on here. Yeah, there it is. Citra. You see, it's got the little born on date on there and everything. A series of singularities is a single hop IPA brewed with a different varietal of hop with each and every batch. We brewed this beer with malt flavor just light enough to get out of the way and let the hop character shine through. Now we'll get out of your way and let you enjoy the refreshing fruit of our madness. Labor. So yeah, not bad. Saltfire. Again, Saltfire in Salt Lake City. This is from my Tavor stuff, and I actually, that's my the beer mail order thing I've talked about. I actually just pulled that out of the fridge. Forgot I'd even had it in there. So this thing's about 4 months old, which typically with an IPA is a little bit longer than what you would like. But I mean, it's clearly maybe not quite as fresh. They're right, it's definitely not very malty, which at 7.3% is a little bit rare. I don't want to say it's like a session IPA, because that's definitely not right. And certain session IPAs I've had have been better than others. A lot of times, I don't know if metallic is the right word, because that's not quite it. But it's almost like if you're old enough, or if you've been around or seen anybody with like the old can collection, you remember the steel cans that pop and beer and things like that used to come in, and they were substantial, right? Like I remember trying to crush one time when I was a kid, and that was really dumb because I just stomped and hurt my foot. But I mean, those you could feel them. Again, they were substantial. You could tell there was something there. And then in an aluminum can, you got it, and it's just like. It's not right the same thing. Even if the content's fairly similar. So that's kind of how I feel about the session IPAs, although I think they also like overly hop them, and when there's not that balance of the nice maltiness and the booziness that's in there, they get thrown out of balance. And so, again, you're drinking, which actually, speaking of, today at Wrigley, O'Doul's, the near beer, right, the Anheuser-Busch non-alcoholic or very low ABV beer, was handing out free samples. So I don't know if anybody's there. I don't know if you tried that out. They had them redesigned. I think it's the guy's name, Brandon Bro. It's Brandon. It's like Breaux is his last name, right? Like bro. Like, hey, bro. But I guess that guy designed Chance the Rapper's albums. He redesigned the O'Doul's can. They're trying to promote, responsible drinking. So where better than the longest day of the year at Wrigley. So we know AB's got the big sponsorship there. So I try not to promote that stuff too much, but they had reached out, and I thought, that's at least it's a cool initiative. And they were handing them out for free. So, hey, free stuff, I'm all behind. Speaking of things that are cool, we got a new product. There's you see the little sign behind me, Hex Head Art. They've got a new Cubs marquee thing, but I don't want to just keep pimping this stuff. I do want to talk about the Cubs really, really quickly, and then we're just going to move on with stuff. I'm going to let you get back to your day. Hopefully this doesn't take too much of your time, but we cannot not talk about Adbert Alzolay. Adbert. It doesn't really pronounce the T. Adbert. My tongue can probably not pronounce it correctly. I think that's one thing that's we've become a lot more cognizant of baseball players and how we should be properly pronouncing their names, right? And Javier Baez has the accent mark over his name, over the A in his last name now, and there's certain things I think where you just part of this is beyond your control after a certain point. The linguistics and the way that your brain patterns are actually formed to learn your language. There are certain sounds you simply cannot make. And I'm bad at a lot of them. Like, I can't do the really guttural German sounds very well. I can't roll my R's. I can't do any of that stuff. And so there are certain, vowel sounds and different consonants and things like that the sounds that I am familiar with from the English language, like my tongue cannot make them properly. So Adbert is the closest I can get. Anyway, so Alzolay comes up, which it was kind of a tease, right? Like they were, oh yeah, Tyler Chatwood's going to get the start, and then Alzolay gets called up, the day before, and so he's in town kind of as a piggyback. And to see him out there, right, he's hitting 95, 96, 97, I think he touched with the fastball. Really tight curveball. It's not that big loopy curve that you're kind of used to, the big 12-6. It's almost, and I'm sure it's almost like a 1230 to 630 or something like that, which isn't really accurate, but it still has downward break. It's just really sharp, and it's definitely there, but when he only throws about 80 and he's coming with the 96, 97 mile an hour fastball, a lot of its efficacy is just from the change of pace, right? Change the eye level. He was working high with the fastball and then would generally work either down with the curve or middle, and then obviously it drops, right? But the really cool part of it was the changeup. And his changeup kind of mimics his curve. It doesn't have that fall off the table kind of tumble that you would expect, and he works with it in, the mid to upper 80s. So there's not a huge difference. I mean, it's still like 10 miles an hour, but it's a pretty firm change, right, when you throw that hard. And so hitters were having a really tough time with it. It doesn't have a ton of depth, right? Again, it doesn't really tumble down. It doesn't really fade too much, but his fastball's got run. So all his pitches have some sort of movement. And he said, so here's what's wild, right? So this kid, he's coming up, and the Cubs have continued to work with him as a starter, and I think should continue to do so as long as he can. The issue early on, what he was going to do at the major league level, was about, can the changeup work? Can he get the changeup going? Because if he's just a fastball curveball guy, that's great, and his stuff plays as a reliever, but if he can get that real third pitch, then he could really be dangerous. And that's always been the problem for him. He's working on that last year. He's like, man, if I can get the change. We saw him really doing well in AAA. But the really interesting thing was after the game, Thursday night's game, the win over the Mets, he said that's the best he's ever felt throwing the changeup. So you're talking about a kid who just got called up, clearly, got some nerves going on there early, but to be out there at Wrigley in your debut, throwing the best changeup you ever had, right? A pitch that requires some feel, that's impressive. And if he can continue to do anything like that and continue to get better, he's only 24 years old, looks really good for the Cubs' development, especially for a team that has done a notably poor job developing pitchers, right? Especially starting pitchers. So if he can be that guy, that's awesome for them. Now, who it's not awesome for are the guys there toward the end of the bullpen, because once Kyle Hendricks comes back, Alzolay is going to have to slot in, even if as a sixth starter. He'll probably eventually slide into that pen in some role. He probably goes back down to Iowa for a while so he can continue to get regular innings, again, work on the change, get enough of that, every 5 days. But he'll definitely be back up by September, regardless of how long he's up now. But you're also talking about Craig Kimbrell, right? So we want to talk about pitchers. We want to talk about guys coming up making an impact. Kimbrell was slated to just throw tonight. He's going to throw in a little while based on when I'm recording this for the Iowa Cubs. If he feels good tomorrow, he's going to pitch again Saturday. That's back-to-back outings. Now, the Cubs had talked about getting him 4 to 5 outings there in Iowa, but there's zero reason to keep him there if he feels physically ready. Now, he said mentally he's perfectly fine. Overall, physically, he's good to go, but there's a major difference between throwing bullpen sessions and throwing in a game and then bouncing back the next day and throwing in a game again. If he's able to do that, go Friday, Saturday, there's really nothing else in it. And again, as long as he feels comfortable with it and the Cubs see what they're seeing, he's repeating the delivery, things look good there, he could be back up in Chicago as of Monday. Now, if you think that's rushing it, consider he's a reliever, and those guys generally don't throw that much during spring training anyway. You think about your closers and guys like that, they don't appear for the first week, maybe even longer. They'll throw every once in a while. They'll bring them in the third inning, things like that. And so you're not talking about guys who need a lot to ramp up. And he's been pitching this whole time. He's clearly in really good shape. Clearly has been hitting the gym, drinking his protein shakes. But the other thing that's really interesting, right? If you look at either a reliever, especially like a closer, high velocity guy like Kimbrel has been doing this forever, he knows what it takes. He can get ramped up pretty quick. But starters generally take a lot longer to get ready. They ramp them up really slowly. It takes several weeks to kind of get into that. And yet, Dallas Keuchel, who signed right around the same time as Kimbrel, again, waited till after the draft had passed and the restrictions were gone. So the Braves signed him. He's active tonight. He's starting for the Braves Friday night against the Nationals. He's a starter. Like, that's wild to me that he's already ready. But what's really cool is, so again, pitching for the Braves. This Friday, I'm not looking at the schedule, and I should have checked it earlier. I don't know if they play Monday. Let's say whether they do or don't. If they do play Monday, then it'll be Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. He'll be in line to start Wednesday. If not, he'd be in line to start Thursday. Either one of those games takes place at Wrigley Field. So Dallas Keuchel will be starting. Craig Kimbrel could be with the Cubs. Now, I would suspect they're not going to pitch him for a third game in a row, right? So if he pitches Friday, Saturday in Iowa, technically, he's optioned. Well, if he's going to be activated, he's not going to spend the time down there in Iowa. He'll be on the next thing smoking in Chicago. He'll be up there on Sunday. He'll hang out with the team. So if they only need to give him one day off, either way, he'll be up with the team. And I would suspect he'll be activated either Monday or Tuesday, which means both Kimbrel and Keuchel will be there at Wrigley and active for their respective teams, which is pretty cool. We're also talking about a lot of stuff going on with the Cubs, right? With the relief corps, you've got Brad Brock. There's issues there. I'm not going to beat that dead horse. I talked about that on my Inside the Basket podcast. I'm going to plug that here a little bit later. But a lot of things going on there, right? Dylan Maple still needs a shot up there. Dakota Meckes could be getting a shot up there. The Cubs are looking to trade for a lefty reliever, which might push Mike Montgomery out. He had another kind of blah outing today and just really has not been sharp this season. Doesn't look as good out of the bullpen. I mean, I think he's a guy whose value lies more in what he can bring back at this point. So we'll see. But a lot of stuff going on there. One other thing I wanted to talk about, because we brought it up on this show a few times before, Kris Bryant kind of going through some things right now. It looks like really still struggling with that high fastball, right? And we're seeing that a lot. That's kind of the new thing. For a long time, the trend was pitch down, down, down. And as hitters have really gotten into this launch angle, we saw Wilson Contreras drive a couple out on Lucas Giolito of the White Sox the other day, who was throwing low strikes. We saw Schwarber hit the very first pitch of the game, four-seam fastball, bottom of the zone, pounded it. So the Cubs were looking for that, those low fastballs, because even a guy with launch angle, if you get around on, you can get down there to that. The issue is those high ones, because as they're coming in, again, these guys are looking to go. They want to keep, and the mistake here is a lot of people think these guys are all with this big old uppercut and they're chopping through. That's not really the case. A guy like Bryant, again, you're looking at, I hope you can see this. If you don't, you'll understand it either way, but is to bring that. So I'm showing it like left-handed. Well, let's do it. I got to put my beer down. So he's right-handed, right? And so he's looking to put that back elbow right there in his rib cage. That's what he's looking to plant. Get that kind of 90-degree angle with it. I know you can't see, I don't have a bat here. But by doing that, I'm swinging, I'm dropping that down. And now if you see my hands right there here, and I kind of want that bottom hand a little bit lower, because that's creating, as my bat comes in, and I've already gotten it to where, right, I want my bat. I don't want my bat down here. I don't want my top hand too low to where my bat's at this steep angle, but I want it to come in. And so then I'm coming through the zone with it at a slight upward angle, right? That's elbow to rib cage, dropping through. But if that ball's coming in high across the top of the zone, or even a little bit above the zone, right? I'm trying to protect in a 2-strike count, that sort of thing. And it's coming in and I'm dropping, and I come in under it, I'm going to miss it. It's really hard for those guys, especially somebody lanky, tall like Bryant, to really get up on that high fastball. A lot of it's timing. Right, and we kind of have seen that with some of these guys that can bring that high velocity. That was happening with Bryant earlier when he was kind of swinging through some pitches, even right through the middle of the zone, his timing is off, and his top hand, as we've discussed before, was getting too low. So he's creating too steep an angle with the bat. So even stuff that wasn't very high, he wasn't able to get to really well. So again, dude's still going to crush mistakes. That's just one of the areas that he needs to work on. And that's something that he is working on. So so look for that. Watch for those high strikes. Watch how he's coming through there. Is he able to get around on those and get the bat up in time? So that, again, it's difficult when you are swinging, even if it's a slight upward stroke, to really get under those high fastballs, or get even on. It's easy to get under them, but to make contact with them properly. So again, that is something to watch for with Bryant. Again, I would assume Kimbrel will be up with the Cubs, probably with the team at Wrigley, maybe by Sunday. Certainly, I would think by Monday or Tuesday, and look to have him active for a couple games. I've continued to say that Braves series makes a lot of sense for multiple reasons. Again, as somebody we saw with Alzolay, he was able to parlay that energy into throwing his best changeup that he ever had. Somebody like Kimbrel, again, physically, if he decides that he's ready and he appears to be in shape and he's kind of good to go, the adrenaline of being able to pitch against his old team, pitch at Wrigley for the first time, I think that's going to really help him tremendously and kind of drive him. I think they really, really want him to debut there at Wrigley. A lot of times with non-pitchers, they've kind of wanted him to debut on the road. Again, kind of fewer distractions. You don't have the home crowd. They almost want less adulation for those guys. With a pitcher, though, again, thriving on that adrenaline, being out there, that has really helped to drive him. I think with somebody like Kimbrel, a closer, ideally they actually get in position where they need a closer, right? That's what that would help. So yeah, so that's some pretty cool stuff. Trying to think, since we've caught up. I don't remember where we left off. Really cool stuff going on. So I don't think, I think it's been a few weeks since I've recorded one of these. It's just been such a long time, so many things going on. So I had a birthday in the meantime. Started a new podcast called Into the Basket with Julie DeCaro from 670 The Score and Brad Robinson from WBBM. And really just a more lighthearted, try to keep it to around 30 minutes. Which I don't usually do a good job of doing on my own, but it's hosted by 670 The Score, and it's just kind of one of these things. It is a Cubs podcast, but again, we try to keep it a little bit lighter, try to go through a few things, discuss some of the salient topics, get into our winners and losers for the week, and just have a little fun with it. I will actually be on, if you're somehow seeing this before 10:20, 10:30, I'm going to be on with Julie on her show on 670 tonight. And then actually in a couple of weeks, 2 weeks from tonight, so Friday the 5th, so that's July 5th, I will be there in studio co-hosting with Julie from 6 to 10 on 670 The Score. So that's something to look forward to. And I think that's about it. Hopefully we keep doing these things a little bit more often. I need to get a little bit better with my timing. We'll see where it goes. And I got a bunch of this beer to drink. So I hope everything is well with you. I hope you are, whether it's a tasty malt beverage or anything else of your choosing, whether that be water, wine, or anything in between. I hope you're enjoying that. And thanks for hanging out with me here for a while. Cheers.